This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 Nightcrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST Robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
There we go. Welcome everybody to the Sunday night call. Tonight's topic is a last minute, what can we talk about topic since no one signed up. And so I thought it would be good for us to just sort of have an open table here to chat about things that you're struggling with. I think that we're at that point in the season now where we're probably trying to figure out what are we going to have our students work on, because the robot is probably mostly done. Maybe your programmers have got the robot now. You might be thinking about how do we figure out champs with the new hoteling thing. If you've gotten enough points so far that it looks like you might get on the list, or maybe you already have gotten on the list, the invite list for champs. What do you want to talk about? I want to problem solve. So anybody want to start off with something that either they're struggling with now, or maybe something they figured out and they want to share how they the solution to whatever their challenge was? So we have a fairly large team, and I'm curious to know how teams change their schedule after their first competition. Do you cut back in your meetings? Do you do optional meetings? What do you do with your students that aren't on critical path to whatever needs to be fixed or changed on the robot? How do you make this part of the season valuable and meaningful for all your students, not just the people that are working on the final tweaks and pokes of the robot?
Something we did this year was we had some of our build students continue their work from the off-season project. So like this year we designed a new robot cart because our old one was super heavy and didn't fit in the back of minivans and whatever. And so we're actually having our like manufacturing students assemble the robot cart. We got all the parts and we catted it all in the fall. And so now we're actually assembling it for 10K. And so like thinking about, can you continue or start your off-season projects early with some of those students, especially since those typically tend to be the newer students who will then have time over the summer to continue those off-season projects.
What is your new robot cart? A cart that can go on the field? Did you redesign it to go through the field?
Yep.
And is the key to that having the robot be up high enough so that the bumpers go over the rail? Is that one of the biggest keys to designing a good robot cart for the field?
I have no clue. I wasn't part of designing it, but I would assume so.
I actually had a conversation about the robot cart with one of our students. I can't even remember who it was on Saturday, and talking about maybe we should think about redesigning our robot cart so that we can take it on the field. Largely that's because our robot is so awkward to pick up this year that we talked about, well, maybe we should get something out on the field. Anybody else have anything they want to share about what they do with their students this time of year through the end of the year?
At 2472, we're trying to get the students involved with helping with the booster budget for next season. With limited success, they did take all the spring break off, and so they've been off for like the last 10 days or so. And most of the leadership was on the band trip or the choir trips to Italy and France.
How has the reception been to having students work on the budget? We have a budget meeting every fall, and we it's not really optional. The student leadership has to participate in that. I'm curious is this the first time you've done this with students involved?
We're trying to get them more involved with, I'd say, limited success so far. One of the objectives we gave is go visit the pits at Northern Lights and talk to other teams and see what they consider to be the most valuable tools or equipment they have, and come back with that. And we only had one practice since that time, and we had TV, the North Metro TV come out that day, so we didn't really get a chance to visit it. So next Tuesday will be the first time we can kind of circle back around to that. But we are asking, do you want to still do 2 regionals? Do you want to travel for 1? Some of those basic things, so we get their opinions built into that. But our booster year runs May through April to kind of parallel the general season. So I guess I'll report back and see what we get.
Go ahead, Dominic.
Yeah, one thing that No Mythic has done starting this year is we've done like weekly budget check-ins with our leadership team, which has been super helpful, sort of seeing, all right, we have a robot budget of 14,000. How close are we to hitting that goal or hitting that limit? And then sort of seeing, all right, what purchases did we make in the last week? Because, you have mentors who notice, oh, we're out of bearings, we should order more bearings or whatever. And a lot of times students don't necessarily see those purchases. And so thinking about what both sort of the size of the big purchases we're making, right? We just purchased some new motors over the past 2 weeks or whatever. And those were big and whatever and fancy and exciting, but then also looking at sort of the breadth of purchases, especially under the robot, sort of seeing where is our money actually going? And it appears to be going into nowhere, but where is it actually getting into our carts and whatever?
That's a really good suggestion. I'm going to bring back to the team. And we're advocating for our business and marketing division to add a supply chain element next year, so there can be more real-time feedback for the students to see how much they're spending. So I think sometimes it's, when you're not writing the checks, it's easy to lose track of that and keep on budget. We're like one limelight away from being over budget on the robot this year.
I'll jump in as the person on No Mythic that works with Dominic. I'm going to lower my hand. I'm not used to this tool. As the person who's the treasurer and the team admin and the person who's looking at every transaction, and then they look at me every week and say, well, what's the budget update? I'm like, about what? So Stacy, to your point, I think it's really important to have those conversations as a team about the impact of the really big decisions. And then there are a lot of fixed costs throughout the year. Like, we've already decided we're going to go to Duluth. So, we can do our best on our hotel and our food and our transportation, but they're going to be costs. And there's not much input that students really need to have into that, because it's not going to change much. But the robot, the category, the checkbook category for robot turns out to be the one there's a couple of them that they're really interested in. And so it turns out when they say budget, they only mean a small piece of what I see, but it's an important piece. So it's been difficult to translate when, because budget, the word budget can span all of those different things.
Good points. Thank you for sharing that. We're losing we have one main grant writer and he's graduating this year. So we got to try and train a couple more in to help them take an active part in the process and trying to make equivalents. Like when we do a Cub Foods bagging fundraiser that, $1,000, that's registration for, some of our off-season tournaments, or that's so many outreach events, or that's, almost a new set of swerve drives. So, and it put into context, because you can spend 12, 13, 14,000 on a robot pretty easily.
You've got your hand up. By the way, can you give us your name? I know that you're on here a lot, and I can never remember.
No worries. My name's Amanda. I'm one of
Amanda.
the coaches on 2530. Sorry about that. I tried to change my Google name and I can't. So apologies for that. Technology defeats me. Yeah, Dominic, I loved hearing your budget. That like I was like, ooh, budget for the robot, because one of the things is hard is to normalize what you're doing with all the other teams. What are you spending on your robot? So thank you for that little kernel of info. And I'm really made me curious. What are you all budgeting for your robot these days? Because I think with the advent of a lot of new technologies, Limelight 4s and Krakens, and it just keeps kind of spiraling upwards. So what is a baseline robot budget? And is that, and a follow-up question to that, Dominic, is some of that ecosystem sort of purchases that will stay on for next year's robot, or is that all just like this year's robot? I'm curious to hear what the field has to say.
From what I understand, it's a bit of both. That robot budget is encompassing, like I said, like bearings and 3D printing filament and all of those sorts of things. But then it also has, motors and, electronics that'll stay on and stay with the team for a couple of years. However, we also have another section, which is just like general shop, from what I understand. So those are like, Band-Aids and other safety stuff, or like markers, or like maybe we need a new tool in the back shop or whatever. And so we have those. And then we also have technology, which is like our camera that we just got this year, or we were thinking about getting scouting tablets. And so those sort of fall under technology. And those are sort of the big three that the students at least care about. Like Toby was saying, the things that we sort of control from year to year and can actually think about, all right, cost analysis, what are we actually going to purchase this year versus next year versus if we don't need to purchase it at all.
And I'll add a fourth category. We have a category for tools. And we do have one of the grants that we've been lucky enough to get every year is split between team support and sort of some tools that are going to last more than 1 year. And so that's where a lot of our big purchases, like when we bought a CNC, those things usually come out of that budget. So the 14,000, it's a tricky one. It's really tricky because the students are like, why is that one in robot? I'm like, well, I can take that out of robot, but we still bought it and we still want it. So it's got to go in some category.
I am the treasurer for Nightcrawler's nonprofit, and I can tell you that as of March 8th, we have spent $6,452.38 for things that were attached to a chassis. We have lots of different categories for things like tools and media cameras and programming laptops and stuff, but for things attached to the robot, 6452. I do know that we have purchased 3 Limelights since then and a bunch of belts from Amazon. So that number is probably closer to 8,000 would be my guess. Now that's stuff that I should say could be attached to the robot. We tend to buy a bit of extras. Like when we buy aluminum, we buy quite a bit of aluminum so that we can save on the shipping. So I can tell you how much exactly is on the robot of that purchase price, but that's what we've spent so far this year. We also reused our swerve modules from last year. The modules, we bought all new Krakens, but we reused the modules.
We've consulted, Tad and I. I think we're right at 12,000, but we didn't have to cover our swerve drive this year. It was written through a grant. But then we have extra things on that. Like we got an extra Robo Rio because if your Robo Rio goes down, so I don't know if you want to count that or not, but our goal is to have a budget of 8,000 for a robot. We were at 12 this year, but technically that, I guess the swerve we didn't pay for the swerve.
I can share that 2 years ago, we spent 11 on the robot, and last year we spent 13. We made a lot of big investments in extra stuff last year, though. So that's probably why that one was. And actually, the Swerve and maybe even this year's Krakens were purchased before last fiscal year. So that might account why that one was so much higher. And this year's is currently so much lower.
The Centurions, I'm sure, were right around 13,000. Now, I think we have extra parts because we did buy a bunch of aluminum pre-drilled and some other things. And then whatever investment in the elevator and some spare parts because we keep breaking things. So, but that's all new Swerves, all new Krakens. I think we're using some of our Neo Vortex from last year or from previous years, but most of it was new. We do have grants for a good chunk of that that we've been able to use. So that's not all cash out the door, but we do kind of allocate the dollars to it, whether it's cash or is covered through a grant.
These numbers I thought we spent a lot of money on robots and I thought we were an outlier, but it sounds like we're not. Well, how long has it been since there was a limit? Wasn't the limit $5,000 to spend a robot just 2 or 3 years ago? And now it seems like we've all more than doubled that.
So I think, Scott, it really depends on what I love your definition of robot. And as the person who's been coding the purchases, I've never had that definition. And my team might really like it if I had that definition because our number is much larger, but it encompasses vastly more stuff than you're talking about.
Sure. Okay.
So our number doesn't really have anything to do with what would be counted in the bill of parts or the whatever that thing is.
In the BOM.
BOM.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
I think there's a component, only 600 per component, but
right.
That's, pretty loose. I don't remember seeing anything about a total, but I have not memorized that game manual either.
There isn't a total anymore, but there used to be you used to have a BOM bill of materials because you had to list everything that was on your robot to make sure you were under the limit. But I can't remember how long it's been since that went away. Anyway, yeah, it seems like what we spent on the robot has gone up a lot, and I don't think it's just us. Toby, to your point about individual categories, our ledger of accounts has 101 different categories for things that we manage our finances for. So we can break it down pretty small. It's probably smaller than it needs to be, but I think it helps when I communicate with the students and the other mentors about where our money is going. That's a good question. So I know that Stacy, you said that you have a weekly update on the things that change, and then Toby, you mentioned something like that. I usually end up doing the accounting once a month-ish, and then I'll send out a report every month to our student leaders. Whether they look at it or not, I couldn't tell you. But we drop a report in Slack whenever the accounting gets done, which is usually every 3 to 5 weeks, I would say.
And we're more of a monthly reporting, although now that we're closer to what we had put in for a budget, there's just a couple of things we're waiting for that are on back order, so there's not much we can do, and one of those is going to be used with our Andy Mark voucher when we get that. But we do report that out with our booster club and then talk about it with students. But frankly, the coaches and the mentors are close to that. If we're getting too close to the line, then that needs a vote from the boosters to apply more funding for those particular categories. We've gone over on a few things like meals and stuff as we've had more people go to drive practice and stuff. They can't eat with the rest of the team, so we have to buy them some other food.
So I'm curious about, as long as we're talking about finances, for those of you that are running your teams with a checking account nonprofit designation, are you carrying a rainy day balance year over year? Are you attempting to have a rainy day balance that you carry so that you can, I don't want to say you don't have to worry about the dollar amount to the every $10, because when you're talking about a budget the size that we're talking about, an extra $100 here and an extra $100 there, is not where the big concerns come from. But I'm curious to know if how close you're running to your kind of goal numbers and how much what you're trying to do with the rainy day fund or with the savings, if you have goals established or anything like that.
With the Centurions, we are probably near 3-4 of our booster club now, and our goal is to carry over enough to pay for at least the first competition for the next year. And we're sitting good. We did get some one-time larger donations when we went to champs last year that we kind of parked and starting to build. So we have some funds if that happens again. We know our school was generous the first time. They've indicated that it was great that we did the first time, and now we're on our own if it happens again. So, which is fair. It was a large amount that they came up in a short period of time, and now they've given us a warning. We know what we need to be prepared for going forward.
We have kept usually on hand around 10K, but we're a small team. That's what we try to keep away for our rainy day and set aside.
I think we have a goal amount, but I think we've been keeping between 10 and 20,000, and it went up quite a bit higher over pandemic, because that year we had some of our regular grants coming in and our expenses just dropped to almost zero because we couldn't do anything. And we were able to squirrel away some of that money and hold on to it. And I think my philosophy really has been to have something in the bank if we get Worlds, so that we do all that last minute fundraising. But if some part of that doesn't pan out, we can do it and we can make that up. That difference can make it up if we have to, but then we wouldn't have it for next time.
Yeah, for when I took over as the treasury 7 years ago now, probably 6 years ago, we established 2 fiscal policies for the nonprofit. We wanted to have a rainy day fund of at least 50% of our operating budget, so that if we lost 2 major sponsors, that would give us a couple of years to get those replaced. And then the other one was to always try to leave the bank account a little bit bigger than it was the year before. If we qualify for champs this year, I think this is going to be the first year that we need to we achieved that 50% backstop, the rainy day fund. We achieved that, I think, within 4 years to do some very fortuitous grants and extra sponsorship that we got. But if we make it to champs this year, we're looking to dip into that rainy day fund for the first time because of the cost of champs and the big wild card for what it's going to cost for hotels. Normally we would book a hotel way in advance and get a really good rate, and then set up a cancellation time that would work for us if we needed to cancel. But not being able to do that this year is really scaring us with our budget. So it looks like this year might be the year that the backstop is going to come into play for us. We'll see. We still have to qualify. We have to do very well at our next regional to get the points we would need. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. All right. Anybody want to talk about something other than finances?
I would.
Scott, I just want to say
Okay.
you should have a whole other meeting on that, like how budgeting and how like another future topic, because there's a ton we could dip into on that.
Well, I know Stacy is I think Stacy, you have seen the videos that I put together on accounting, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And I can, if anyone's looking to start a booster too, you can help with that. Hopefully get your 990s in.
I found out, Stacy and I go to Hub Breakfast, and I found out earlier this year that she suffered through all of my videos, but I created 5.5 hours of videos on how to build an accounting system to run a robotics team and a nonprofit. And it's up on the website. It's team2052.com/accounting. And I did that primarily so that when I leave, somebody can take over the system that we built. And then come to find out that Stacy watched them all and helped them set up their accounting. So if anyone's interested, I'll give you the 50-second plug here of, we had tried a lot of different things over the years. And when I took over the accounting, we were using 2 separate spreadsheets. one was managing the budget and one was managing the costs, and then somebody was putting it into Quicken and it was in Quicken, and then someone took it over and tried to do all in Quicken, but then you only one person can see where the money is, and there's really no oversight. So I built a system in Google Sheets, and then I set permissions so that it's viewable for everybody in the leadership team can view it, so that everybody can see what's going on with the money, but then only I can go in and update it so that we don't have to worry about someone accidentally putting in a bad entry or something. And so it's worked very well for us. It took me an hour or two to do our taxes this year, because the way the spreadsheets are, you can set it up for reporting to go in your different tax lines. It takes a long time to set it up, but once you got it set up, it's been really helpful for us. Anyway, so that was the plug. Yes, I could probably talk about finances for 90 minutes. I don't know that we would have more than 3 people on the call, but we could definitely do that. All right, Toby, you raised your hand. I shut you down.
I was going to ask about if any teams actually had qualified and gone through the hotel thing. I mean, I've read all the stuff. I'm as prepared as we could be, but just as if anyone had done it. And if you haven't, we can move on to the next person in the queue.
Yeah, just did it last week. It is actually somewhat, I don't know. I'm pretty torn on it. It was much, I don't know. It's all in a web portal, so it's kind of slick in that way. One of the things that was really weird, we were going back and forth on if we wanted to stay over on Tuesday night. And it seemed like every hotel has stuff like blocked off ahead of time for Tuesday night. And they kind of said, well, if it just, so like all these hotels would be like 100 rooms available Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, nothing Tuesday. And they kind of said, well, just sign up and send in an email and we'll try to get you those for Tuesday. So we're kind of like, and it was a pattern. So I don't know if they're holding them or what. It seemed like the 6 hotels we wanted all kind of had that going on. So we're kind of like, well, maybe we'll stay outside of town on Tuesday night and drive it. Because as long as we're doing the first block Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think we're not sure. So, and then the prices, they're higher. I think between 160 and 200 is probably what you're looking at for 4 people. The really close ones there was quite a few that were a bit higher too, but I didn't really see anything below 160 in there. So I will say it's kind of slick. Once you get your block in the portal, it seems like it's reserved for you. So yeah, and then of course it's a race, right? It's where as soon as you get this email, fill it out as fast as you can because you're competing with other teams. And so yeah.
So how quickly did you get the email, and when after you knew that you were going to get the email? Because like you said, I'm looking for those trigger points. What can we do to be ready?
Yeah, it comes out on Thursday afternoon. I think I got it at 2:30. And basically we had kind of had a plan, and even our plan kind of went to junk, but we still had it done by 3:30. So let me double check that.
And did you already have your list of students, and you already had your rooming lists, and you were already pretty comfortable with what you were going to put in?
Yeah, so you can, the way it works is you reserve the number of rooms you want, and then you have a week to give them a rooming list with like detailed individuals on it and a credit card. So you basically like grab it, reserve it, and then you have a week to like do like the whatever your accounting or business, whatever steps you need to do to really lock it in. And so, and I think that's the cycle is like this Thursday is like every Thursday, basically a new block, or you're given the invite to come out or to come on and try to sign up. So
Sam,
as soon as you get your invite.
Do you pick a location of the metro that you want to be in when you pick a room?
Yeah, it's like you basically just has every hotel that has space, and you get to pick from them.
Oh, you get to pick the exact hotel.
You do, yep. And then of course, you see the one you want, and you go there, and they're 4 rooms short for your team. So like, crap, go to the next one, and it's really hard because they had that spreadsheet of all the hotels that are available. But I would not expect. We had like 5 picked out, and none of those were available by the time I went in there. So I mean, I would expect to like make a deep list, I guess. I would say, or yeah.
When you say not enough rooms, how many rooms were you looking for?
We had 13, And there was quite a few that had, I'm guessing like there was quite a few that had like 5 to 8 left, somewhere in there. But then some of them, had 70, 80 available too. So, I mean, every week I'm sure those are getting, chipped away at.
Was it
Right.
very clear how far away from the venue? Because my group is going to be walking.
Yeah, it's very clear. I mean, it tells you the exact, their exact hotel, link to their website, all that business. So, and they had pictures of the rooms. They told you what amenities were in them. So that was pretty nice, I'd say.
Sam, are you?
Sam, were you a group that qualified off the list, and so you found out on the Thursday after the Wednesday release, or were you a group or a team that qualified from a win and you knew like on a Saturday that you were good to go?
Yeah, we qualified from a win, so we knew right away.
So you knew right away, but you didn't get the email until Thursday. So there was a 4-day wait. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Yep.
Sam,
think-
the rooms that.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say,
finish.
it says you have till the following Monday then to fill it in. So basically, it's like a cycle. It's like opens Thursday, you have till Monday. Opens Thursday, you have till Monday. At least like at this point, right?
Are you staying downtown, Sam? Or are you busing?
We are. Yep.
So your 160 to 200, those were for rooms that were basically walking distance.
Even the stuff that was because we looked at it a couple miles out, and there was almost nothing under 160. There was maybe like a 154, I recall.
Okay.
That was even like 10 miles. There's what's it called? Like the medical
center.
district.
Yeah.
That's where we stayed last year, I think. And yeah, nothing. Everything there was about that range too.
Interesting. Yeah, that's significantly higher per night than what we paid last year.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah.
in the same area.
And did they all include breakfast? Was that
No.
a no-brainer? Oh, they didn't.
Nope. No, quite a few don't. Yep. Of course, it varies from hotel to. It's basically just whichever the hotel have the amenity.
It seemed like last year the ones that had that worked through FIRST all had been required to provide breakfast, even if they didn't normally.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I haven't. Nothing indicated that to me, at least.
I will say that not last year, but 2 years ago, we stayed at a hotel in the medical district, and they did not have a free breakfast, but they said, well, they could offer a free breakfast to our team for $40 a room for the whole time. So that would have been, I think it was 2 mornings, so that would have been $5 a piece. So we said yes, but then you had to order your breakfast, and so we only ended up having about a third of our students take advantage of that. So that's a piece of advice I will share, is that we paid a lot of money for the few students that did get breakfast. So if you're staying at a hotel who says they can make it so that your students can get breakfast, if it's not a buffet, the students probably aren't going to get there quick enough. Not very many of them, at least. So be careful with that. We did not do that following year when we stayed at the same place. We ended up doing granola bars and apples and oranges and things like that on the bus.
Yep, that's our plan too.
Well, this is super good info, Sam. I'm glad you were on the call tonight, because we have been asking, the mentors on our team have been asking a lot about who do we know that's done this already. So now I've got an answer.
Yep, and you happen. I mean, it's probably not a problem for anybody, but they've had to deal with it before. But you do have to have a credit card on hold. You have to have a credit card ready. Not a week after you reserve, you get your block of rooms. So within a week, you got to get them that info too. So if you have to deal with schools or whatever, make sure that's lined up.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good info. Thanks, Sam.
Oh, I was just going to ask back on the finance part. Do any teams charge students to be team members? We do not.
Nightcrawler does. Every activity at Irondale has an activity fee. And so being in robotics has an activity fee, just like being on a sports team or any other activity. at the
Yeah,
high
but
school.
like our activity fee is different than being on sports because activities is only like $50. So like an activities fees really vary. So can you give me an idea of that?
Our activity fee is $200 for students who are not on what used to be called free and reduced lunch, but now it's called assistance or whatever. It's $200, and if a family says I just can't do that, then we end up waiving the fee anyway. That is significantly less than other activities like marching band drumline. That's more like $1,000 to be in that. I don't know what hockey is. Hockey's quite a bit more. But then I think debate is only like 25 or $50. So, yeah, I mean, we're more in line with the sport. There are other activities at Irondale that are 4 to 5 times more expensive than robotics.
I'll jump in, Natasha. We are a part of the Rochester Public Schools, so they charge an activity fee that we never see. It's $125-ish. And so that doesn't come to our team at all. This is the first year that we decided to charge a travel fee for our team. After our experience at Worlds last year for the first time in a long time, we thought that made a lot of sense for our budget. And in comparison to some of the other activities where we hear there's multi-$100 fees, we thought that wasn't unreasonable. So I think we charged $150 a student for our 2 regionals this year.
The Centurions, we have 2 seasons, but it goes through the school. So the fall or the preseason is $50 and is $50 for the build season. And then they help cover coach stipend and buses to regional or to local tournaments, not to regional.
So No Mythic has the highest fee of all the ones that you've actually mentioned so far. And that's intentional. And it's not trying to be exclusive, but we're really trying to push engagement, really, really deep engagement. And so we ask at a recommended $250 regular just team fee, but we're really clear about sliding scale. So there's a requirement that there's a team fee. It has to be greater than 0. And we actually sometimes push families that we're like, if this money is coming out of money that you otherwise would be spending on rent, that you really need to be putting into rent, you shouldn't be paying the whole fee. But we do ask it not be a student decision, that it be a family decision. But we find that if we don't have any fee, it's harder on our bottom line, but it also decreases our engagement. Like when people have put money on the line, and low-income families have put $20 on the line. It feels different. And so we've kept those fees, and they've worked pretty well for us. And then we go ahead and add a travel fee when we travel to an away regional competition. And when we go to Worlds, we have an even bigger travel fee. And I just calculated it. I think that our cost per student to go to Worlds is going to be between $800 and $1,000. It's a lot. So even though we're not going to ask that much, we're going to be asking a big fee, and we're going to be taking greater than 0.
What will you ask? Just curious, because we came up with a number very similar to that.
We ask $250 to go to Duluth, and we ask $500 as our recommended fee to go to Worlds. And we actually have a number of families who give us extra, who do donations that help to subsidize other families that can't do it. So, we are lucky that this is viable for a lot of our families, but then we have a number, and I actually should know the percentage, a number of families that are not paying the full amount, and that's fine with us too. And Dominic finally gets to get a word edgewise as I answer a lot of that.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that one of the grants, it's sort of a partner grant with our shop improvement grant that that money also goes towards our sliding scale supplemental sort of cash of, I think the grants combined to be about $10,000, and I want to say about 2,000 of that goes towards supplementing those sliding scales. Oh, 5,000? 5,000. Half of it goes towards supplementing those sliding scales.
Subsidizes every student.
I'll add that in addition to our $200 activity fee, and that is considered a fee, in 2022, we changed all of our travel fees to become donations. So no questions asked, don't even have to apply. If you walk up to me and you hand me a check, I'll take it. Otherwise, we don't even ask if people are interested in making a donation or not. We've had too many instances in the past where we've had captains opt out of traveling because they didn't want to ask for scholarship funds to travel. And so we just made it optional. This year we made a suggested donation to Travel for Duluth of $250. That's up, but that's also because we bought almost all the food for our students. I think they had to pay for their food on the way back and one dinner while they were up there. Otherwise, we provided breakfast and lunch every day and dinner one night. So we spent a lot more money on food. So we upped the donation. We had a 65% participation rate among our families who made a donation of some amount. We've never asked for a donation more than $250 for champs. Last year, our cost per student was $1,000. This year, we were initially budgeting $1,200 per student for champs, and we'll see what that actually ends up being once we get hotel costs, again, if we qualify. But our donations that we ask for champs travel covers usually about 25% of the cost, and the 75% is made up out of everything else we do for the year: sponsorship, fundraising, all of that. This year, we're currently looking at student donations covering about 20% of the trip.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to chime in thinking about costs of away regionals. At least our team, we cover almost all of the meals. I think and we also do snacks during the day. The only meal that students have to pay for with cash is, the dinner on the way back from Duluth. We'd stop at a fast food place. And so it's interesting thinking about costs of regionals and thinking about what are you actually including in that? Because I know I was reading through 1816's handbook, and they were like, students have to pay for their hotel rooms, they have to pay for their transportation, they have to pay for their meals, which I thought was really interesting thinking about how they approach it. But obviously they're coming from Edina, so it's a sort of different idea of how travel works.
This year for Duluth, we charged $230, and that covered all the meals except for on the way back where students covered their own. We are able to book the conference room at the hotel that we stay at. And so we made our meals for both nights. I think we had taco bar one night and subs another night. And the food is covered. And then we bring snacks from what looks to be our Costco pop-up because parents keep dropping stuff off. So our robot room looks like, a small snack store. And I think we were able to stay in budget, maybe even a little below. We have a few students who need support to be able to still travel with the team, and we gladly are able to meet that need.
Well, somehow we got back on the topic of finances. Does anybody have anything else?
I was going to go back to food. If anybody knows anything about 10,000 Lakes and what they have for food for lunches, or do we need to work on bringing something in?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that one. Does anyone know? We're not competing at 10K, so that hasn't come up.
10K, we do.
From what we saw from the venue, the rules were really weird. It appears as though you can bring food into the venue, but I know we're sponsored by Nelson's Deli, which is a 5-minute walk away, and so we're getting they're donating sandwiches for our Friday lunch. And so if any of you want to support a local business and get a bunch of sandwiches, you can walk over to Nelson's Cheese and Deli for some good
Nelson's is
sandwiches.
awesome. Yeah, Nelson, you lucky.
Yes,
That's a great sponsor, by the way. They have awesome
Yeah,
food.
we need to discuss with them.
No, that's great. We'll probably go there Thursday. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, my understanding is you can bring food right in, everything except crock pots and stuff. Sorry, Toby, you had your hand up. I just started
Yep.
talking.
I have an email from Lexi, and she is saying that the committee confirmed that outside food will be permitted, but you can't bring hot pots and crock pots, and you can't have fully catered buffet meals. But aside from that, they were pretty excited about the fact that we can bring food in, and we have Nelson's for one meal, but we have parents bringing meals for the other two meals. So that's pretty exciting to know that. And of course, we were thinking we might want to drive over there and just look at the spaces, because sure, you can bring it in, but is there anywhere to eat inside? And so, it's a new venue for all of us. So we'll have to figure out. And of course, if it's a nice day, we'll chuck everybody outside and sit on the grass.
I see they're going to have a food truck, but I mean, I don't know if they really mean singular truck with all that people. That seems not enough.
Actually, Lexi says food trucks in the email I see here. So
Okay, they'll need to update the event manual, because I'm just looking at that now. From 10 to 2 on Thursday through Saturday, there'll be a food truck, but that might just be a typo. But it looks like they do take cash and credit and debit cards, so it's not cashless for any of our kids. I'm sure we'll bring something in, and we use our bus as a place to eat if we can't otherwise do that, as long as they'll leave the bus with us. It's so close, they might not. They might send it back and send one back to pick us up. We'll have to work with the district on that.
I am curious to shift gears here. Is anybody making significantly big changes to their robot between regionals for those that compete in two regionals? Nobody.
We were considering.
Go ahead, Dominic.
We were considering doing an LG only bot, but decided against it. We thought it would be too hard to qualify to even get to champs. And our build students are a little bit burnt out right now. So not a huge thing. I think we're hoping to add a ground coral intake just to L1, just to get that easier, clearing the floor from coral and all that stuff. But if we do it, we're only adding it after 10K, just in time for champs.
Yeah, similar here. We looked at. I mean, we even designed. We had like 10 pounds left, and we designed a floor pickup for coral, and just it wasn't in the cards. It wasn't happening. Like, it got to a prototype, and I was like, it's not in 2 weeks, not happening. So yeah, other than that, just code.
Well, I don't want to spoil any surprises my students might have, but I will say that the chassis is the same size and our elevator is the same height. And there's been a lot of other things that have been changed. So, or are planned to be changed. So we've got a very ambitious group of students this year, and they're ambitious. So we have a deadline of handing over the robot by Wednesday. So hopefully that'll happen.
The 2472, the kids are going to be voting this week if they're leaving the climber on and work with that, or if they're going to take it off and then add, they have an LJ remover that they've built but hasn't been attached because we're at weight. But they might be looking at some ways to make Charybdis lighter and be able to add some more things to it or do all the things. We'll see what they decide on.
We tried our hardest to add a climber. We added a climber. and it just was unsuccessful. And we just competed this last week, so we are actually done. But I would strongly suggest that if you don't have a climber, you do, because that's who gets picked in finals are robots with climbers. So if you can make it happen, you should.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with another coach on Saturday, and it seems like if you want to be picked up, if you're not picked up as a first bot, if you want to be picked up as a second bot, as to probably play defense, because that seems like the trend right now. You need to have an auto that scores, and you need to have a climber. That seems like that's the top criteria. Or if you have enough LG bots, but it seems like the LG bots, everybody's running out of the LG bots by the time you get back around. So if you can't do LG, especially LG up in the barge, then yeah, climb and an auto.
Yeah, they worked on worked on being able to score LG at that last minute, which kind of gets you the same as a low climb as a compromise.
That, by the way, your team, that's the first time I'd heard that strategy. That was genius. That idea of scoring LG so quickly that the opponents can't get it up in the barge. Very smart. 6 points. Yeah, really good.
It's the mother of invention when your climber didn't work with the amount of torque that you had, and they're committed to not making last minute changes. This has been a shift in strategy for the team of trying. Before we'd like, let's just put it on and see what flies. And this year it's like, it doesn't go on and we don't use it if it hasn't worked, like I think 80% of the time in practice. So a lot more discipline. Sometimes they still want to let loose, but it's proven successful so far this year. So hopefully they stick to that. It's ultimately what they decide to do and what they vote to do. So
yeah, you guys had a great regional, really great regional in Duluth.
Yeah, we were happy with that. Very happy with that. And our drivers, like neither one of them talk hardly ever, but they are dialed into one another. So
that's great. Let me see what else is on our list of topics. Anybody, if anybody has a question or they want to share something, please just shout it out. I don't need to lead the conversation.
I guess something No Mythic recently has been working on and thinking about like team culture. We have recently gotten a lot more competitive, and I think team culture has sort of fallen to the wayside in some aspects. And so I was wondering what activities or conversations or meetings do all the different teams have regarding team culture? I know like we've been thinking a lot about like unconscious bias training and thinking about sort of how do you reduce like microaggressions and other like comments that people have been hearing on the team. And so I guess I was wondering how other teams approach sort of work surrounding misogyny and thinking about, homophobia and transphobia, and how that all works. It's a rather big question.
We have a mentor that is dedicated to inclusion on our team, and that's everything from women on the team, LGBTQ students, to dietary needs and things like that. Most or many of our leadership fall into a non-traditional STEM category, and we have a significant portion of the team is part of the LGBTQ community. So it's kind of always there and present, and how they advocate for one another is wonderful. And then something our school has been doing is we've had a series of seminars this year from sports psychology, and it's inclusive of other activities. They tend to only use sports, but that they've been putting on about stress and dynamics and positive self-talk. And the inclusion mentor and myself and a few others have been consistently attending those. It was something they had been promoting just from an awareness standpoint. And it's a lot on these kids, right? If the lead programmer, if your auto isn't working, like everybody's looking at him or her, and worked on the practice field, doesn't work in competition. So that's a lot of stress and trying to give them some time. I was maybe never so disappointed as anything I've ever seen in robotics when at the Northern Lights Regional during the playoffs. One of the top teams, the Engineers, I saw two of them just about get into a fist fight, and had to be broken up by one of their team members. And like, I don't ever want to be at a point where the kids don't like one another and that they are going to be violent with one another. No success is worth that dynamic. And it goes against everything FIRST is for. You know, you got to be professionalism with your own team first, and then that should radiate out from others. Well, you guys were, trying to help us put the limit switch back on or do whatever. That was happening right next to the group. And this is the first time I've ever seen it. I hope I never see it again.
From a Nightcrawler point of view for culture, we've done a variety of different sort of programming type stuff over the years around inclusion and appropriate behavior and things like that. I think that this year it just kind of became everyday language. We'd set expectations often, have conversations about what does it mean to be GP. We're sort of an I guess I had not heard this term before this year, but our student leadership started using it when they talked to sponsorships and when they talk to the judges about we're an all-comers team. So we're not restrictive in any way in terms of who signs up to join the team, which is how we have such an enormous team this year. And we talked often about should we close it off, and no one likes the idea of doing that, despite the fact that we often have way too many students for the amount of work we have. But we also cater to a pretty high number of students with special needs or IEPs within the school. We had 2 students this year who had one-on-one para support to be on the team. And what I think is really cool about that type of thing is that just how naturally they fit in with everybody else, and how the other students, the students that struggle to find something to do or feel like they don't fit in, I feel like, and maybe I'm only seeing what I want to see, but I feel like our students are doing a really good job of making sure everyone feels included. I don't know if that's a happy accident or if that's because of the way that we speak and talk within our groups, or both. But I feel like things have been going pretty well for us. So I got to get some wood to knock on here. Things have been pretty good for us on Nightcrawler in those regards.
Scott, how big is your team?
We had 51 on the roster on January 1st. I think we might have 49 right now.
I think another question I have is about like mentor base, especially like thinking about diversity. Because right now we only have one female technical mentor, and Kelly is awesome. But we found that we've had difficulties getting more non-male technical mentors. So I guess I was wondering, are other teams also having this struggle, or has someone cracked the code in getting more representation in the mentor base? Because we found, if we have, if you have female leadership in terms of students and you don't have that in terms of mentor support, it sometimes gets difficult. So I guess I was wondering, have other teams sort of figured out how to do it?
I was just bringing up our website to look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 female mentors on our team. One's a software engineer, 2 are mechanical or electrical engineers. And we've had more in the past that have since gone away from robotics. We're hoping they come back. It's not a 50-50 by any stretch. but I feel like we do pretty good with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. I think it's an important thing to try to find for your team, but it's also hard because the workplace isn't that. I mean, all of us who are professionally in engineering, that's, it's not like the workplace is 50-50. It's a smaller pool to try to recruit from, and it's just, it's a challenge. But that's why we're all here, right? I don't have not really words of wisdom or anything, but yeah.
Centurion is our lead software mentor is female, but otherwise the rest of us that are females fall in kind of that business and marketing and the inclusion side. And then our coaches and our CAD and mechanical mentors are all male. We haven't cracked a code yet.
We have an alumni mentor who has returned to the team, and she was a build captain when she was on the team, and she is our if you make it into finals, you're allowed to have a mentor down in the pit, and she's our on the field pit mentor. She's amazing, and the students just love working with her. We're very fortunate to have her come back as an alumni to be a mentor.
I'm a big believer that just having females mentors on the team, no matter what their role, is really empowering for the other females on the team. So even though I'm a physician and have no technical knowledge other than bumpers, I'm a super bumper expert right now, and I will go up against any of you for bumpers. But other than that, it doesn't really matter. We have a part-time software or programming female mentor, and the other female mentors are business and logistics. But it doesn't really matter the role. Honestly, I think our female students have really identified that just having a female role models and leads on the team and mentors on the team has been, and no knocks to our male mentors at all, who are wonderful, but just having that presence there is really helpful, no matter what.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm on robotics because my daughter was in robotics for 4 years, so I see that, and I agree 100%. Does anyone have anything else? What are we at? We're at 8:00 here. So I have a question. I'm really curious because I've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth between CAD and programming most of the last couple of years. I'm curious to know how well or how badly are you treating your programmers when you turn over the robot to code? It seems like something that is always a problem, and I think everyone struggles with it. And I'm just curious to know, I feel like we make a commitment to turn the robot over to our programmers every year, and we miss that deadline every year. And I'm curious to know what other teams are doing or how they feel about it.
Well, for us, it helps that our team captain used to be our programming captain. So he very much, and he also happens to be our drive coach. And so he very much is like, we need as much programming, as much drive practice as possible. And so that's been super helpful for us. I think it's also helped that we still build those two robots. We have that practice bot and that comp bot. And so our programmers get our practice bot a week earlier than our comp bot, which I think helps a lot with that. And then even before they have the robot, they have all of the skeleton code fully made. And so it's worked pretty well, at least from what I've identified. And so thinking about that, and then we've made it so that we have build extra practice on Monday, and then we have programming extra practice on Friday. And so that's been and then we have drive practice on Wednesday, because that's when the field is open. And so then we have been working really well, sort of designating whose day is it for the robot.
Go ahead, Stacey.
Our team prioritized getting the robot to drive and programming earlier than normal, and we're able to meet that. I think we were driving at like week 3. So some of the other decisions they made, primarily with having all the pre-drilled aluminum, they could assemble faster and change things on the fly without having to take it apart and go back and re-drill into the original. So that's been the focus. And then as a team, they decided that working on autos was like the primary thing they wanted to do. And so that has gone ahead of everything else. So that means programming gets it at every possible moment. And the other groups are kind of working around them. If that means meeting kind of an off-cycle meeting to do the soldering or the wiring, then that's what they do. So that at Tuesdays and Thursdays, primarily when we meet, that they can have programming and drive can have the robot whenever they need it. They've tried to be better about communicating. Sometimes there's been a couple of kerfuffles where one group thought they were having it and it really was somebody else at the same time. So we need to continue to improve on that.
I guess I'm wondering, thinking about autos, one thing we've identified as a sort of major issue is we only built 1/6 of the reef. We only built sort of one side of it. And so we aren't really able to practice autos very well. And so we've only been able to do auto testing down at HCPA. And fortunately, we timed it on Saturday. We're a 2.5-minute drive from the field. You can get there in one match. But, that's, still having to organize getting over there. And we're fortunate that we've sort of figured out the rules and thinking about signing up on Wednesday. And then once we're done with Wednesday, we can sign up for open slots on Saturday. And then we just started doing scrimmages on Fridays. But thinking about how do other teams sort of approach building game elements and getting sort of that space set up, because like I know for us we have carpet, but thinking about like it takes 30 minutes to set it up and clean it up, and so at that point you're losing an hour of practice. I guess how do other people approach sort of having the space to even tune autos?
I see our programming captain Caleb is on the call. I don't know if he's paying attention. Caleb, feel free to jump in if you're listening.
Yeah. So we have a gym space, but we have to roll out our carpet every day that's pre-taped, and we just keep it on the side of the wall because the school's okay with that during the school day. And then we have half of a reef that we put down, and each day I bet that reef is off by 3 to 4 inches, which kind of makes it difficult to tune autos super well. So we try to put more of a focus on taking care of like variances in the field, so we're ready for like competition variances, if that provides any insight.
We don't build, we don't have the space to build those things. This year, that's what practice day is for us, is to get on a real field and practice. The NMRC does have a traveling field, but it's set up in Alexandria. So we drove 3 hours to spend 4 hours only on a field, and then we drove 3 hours back home. And so that's why it was a real, I guess, strike to us when practice day was taken away from us at Great Northern Regional. So we struggle, and I'll tell you that pretty much all the teams up here struggle to get on to any fields because they aren't by us, and that hurts us in the long run.
I gotta say, it's very normalizing to hear all of everybody's struggles, because practice field has been one of our 2530's real pain points. And honestly, one of our learning points, because we used to just get by with like one element, like I hear some of you are, or, just one little piece of the field, just enough to get by. And I would say that last year was a kind of a changing point for our team, where we were like all in on let's build as much as we can and be as realistic as we can, because we had an option of a little more space for a year only. But I see one of our students is on the call, Julia. If you're there and wanna speak up about how we are now able to have space and use practice space, you could speak up.
Yeah, we have our cafeteria up in our middle school. We are able to use that and we roll that out basically every day. We have two carpets that makes basically a half field. We roll those out. We have an entire reef worth one large human player station and then one segment. And then we have a third of a barge ish. So we take those out every day, or every day we have practice basically. And I'm on the drive team, so we've been usually programming sets those up in the beginning of our meetings because they're using the field at the beginning. Drive team meets at the end, so we're the ones taking down. But yeah, it takes like 30 minutes to set up and take down, but we have found it worth it this year because it just gives us so much more realistic field setup. I don't know.
Caleb, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
I was just gonna. So yeah, 2847. We try to get going all the way back. We try to like front load our soft. We try to say like what software is new this year that we haven't done before. So like we've done an arm before. Okay, so if we have an arm on the bot, hopefully that can kind of wait till later. So like this year was our first year doing an elevator. So we made sure we had some mechanical elevator that could move on some like blocks basically that our programmers could play with in like I want to say week 1 or 2. We've done the same thing with like back when we learned how to do limelights with April tags, week 1 or 2. The first year we did Swerve trying to get that. And so some of it's even if you have build students available, right? Trying to hack something together so your software, people can start playing with these mechanisms really, really early. And we try to get the bot to them in like middle of week 5 is kind of the dream. And it's usually somewhere in there. This year too, we also played with the simulation stuff a lot, like and it was actually a huge, it was really big for our software students of like, we really have one main student and it's kind of like the question before it goes in the bot, does it work in the simulation? Well, no. Okay, well, it's probably not going to work on the real one. So that saved a ton of time for us. It's a bit of a pain. It definitely like is like a higher threshold to like maybe even get kids into it, or it makes your code base more complex, but it's been, or at least for us, it's been worth it. Our first year doing it though too. And I guess I'll just echo with the practice. We actually have a classroom that's maybe half the size of a field that we get to actually leave up, which it's been huge. But still, the variances, it's all been, does it like kind of logically work, and can we adjust it on the real field and just film every match on the real field and say it's off 3 inches, adjust, and really try to make sure it doesn't do the same thing at home. Does it do the same thing every time? If what are the error bars on what it's doing? Like in autos, is it off 1 foot this way, 1 foot that way, or is it always within 2 or 3 inches? And we just need to find the sweet spot on the real field. And so I don't know if that helps at all. That was a lot, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
I was going to ask Caleb if he would jump in again, but to kind of share the experience of programming versus build this year. But one thing I want to say before Caleb hops in, if he's willing, is that I feel like the last few years our build students have been more cognizant of the need for the programmers to have the robot. And I think that they've been doing a really good job of saying, well, if we get the elevator on the robot, then while we're doing this next thing, then programming can tune the elevator. So Caleb, if you're still there, are you willing to kind of share how things have kind of ping pong back and forth this year for us?
Yeah, honestly, this year has been great for programming compared to a couple of the previous years. Preseason, we built our new, because we decided to switch to CTRE Swerve generated code, because that was one of our pain points from previous years. So we built the chassis preseason, and we're able to keep running different, like learning how to do system identification and running autonomous paths. So after kickoff, we were able to start running our own autos and figuring out what paths we needed week 1. And we got the elevator on pretty early so we could work on some of the timings of shooting the elevator up, driving to the human player station. Even though we didn't have full mechanisms, it really helped the programming team. Kevin, you got a point?
Well, while we're waiting for
I
Kevin,
think
I also want to say that we got lucky in the size of the chassis we built on our preseason chassis matched the size of the chassis we landed on for our competition bot too. That makes a big difference as well.
I think on the build side, it's gotten a little bit easier because of how heavy we're using CAD. So we could kind of do little swaps of, okay, we CAD a full mechanism, we could build it off robot, we could still let programming take the chassis, do their alignment, do whatever. And then when we have the mechanism built off the robot, we could then just put it on the robot. And it just makes those switches easier and allows programming to have the competition bot more than build.
Yeah, and we only build one robot, so we have to go through a lot more like logistical who gets the robot this day. So usually at the start of a meeting, we're figuring out what do you guys need, what do we need, how are the next few days going to go for who gets to basically use the robot.
Great. And I think we kind of made our communication between sub teams a lot more robust over the past few years, or I guess over the past year. That was one of our deltas from last year. Last year we got the robot to programming at our first regional, and of course that wasn't great. Kayla was programming autos in the pit and then testing it on the practice field 5 minutes later. So a big change from last year was this year was making that chassis before the season, making communication between sub teams smoother and making sure that we know what our schedule will look like the week prior.
Kevin, I didn't realize you were on the call. I didn't want to spoil the surprise about what you were changing in the robot. Do you want to share that, or do you want to wait until you know that it's actually going to be on the robot?
Yeah, sure. So after Northern Lights, we kind of went back and forth between do we actually upgrade the robot, do we not, do we just focus on programming, do we focus on autos, making them better. And then I think over this past week we went from not changing anything mechanically at all in our first week to the second week this week to changing absolutely everything. So we looked at making new ground intake, which is now all cut and is half assembled on the robot. And then we also are changing our arm and combining our algae and coral scorer into one. So we it kind of looks like Wells Things robot a little bit, but that's the general idea.
And the climber.
Yeah, we also took Wild Things Climber.
And the gear ratios. We took our sphere modules apart. Yeah, we changed a bunch, or they're in the process of changing a bunch. Does anyone have any final things? We've got about 10 minutes left. Is anyone already looking ahead to the summer and next year? Things that they want to do that they're already planning for?
Well, something we did differently this year is we just announced our next year's team captain yesterday. That was definitely a big change because we realized 5 of our 6 captains are seniors this year. And the only returning captain is our programming captain, and he doesn't want to be team captain. So we decided it's probably better to have more overlap between this year's team captain and next year's team captain. And so we have a little bit of a shadowing program that we're creating between the two, just to sort of get more transition time and to get more experience passed on from one to the other. And so that's been interesting. We will see how it plays out.
I guess this is a little bit of continuation from Scott's point from earlier, but this is the first year I think, at least as I've been on Nightcrawler, that we've changed the robot extensively in the period of time between our first regional and second regional. Do teams usually change the robot, or do they usually just focus on programming?
I would say we always change, even between, sometimes we've done a back-to-back competition and we've always changed in between. It put in 2 or 3 12-hour days, but we always know that there's things that we can get better at. And so you divide and conquer and pick the ones that will give you the best advantage. Like I said, we knew we wanted to get that climber working. We didn't have it for week 1 because we were too heavy. So then we spent a lot of time cutting that weight. And it worked. It would work on the practice field, and then we'd get out there and it didn't. So no, we always plan. And like right now, then now that we're done competing, we're making plans for how to make the robot better, because we'll complete in the NMRC conference championship in the fall. So they're gonna get a climber to work. So that's already our plan. So yeah, we always change.
I would say we try not to. I know in 2023 we did a huge overhaul, and that bit us in the back because it meant that we didn't have enough time between our between our first and second regional, and so then we were having to scramble, and it didn't end up working very well. And so I think learning from that, I think a lot of our students are very much like, we should design the robot we want to have for week 1. And if that means programming doesn't get as much time, oh well, then we'll just have a better robot in week 5, right? Saying up front we want to build, and then we'll have program it, rather than sort of that ping-ponging effect. But I don't know.
Okay, I think we're getting close to the end here, but before we go, I want to know what we're going to talk about next week. So who here is brave enough to sign up to host a talk next week, or can at least offer a suggestion of what we should talk about? Natasha's raising her hand. Oh, yes. Congratulations. Did she leave? Oh, no. She was waving goodbye. She wasn't volunteering. Oh, no. All right. Anyone else willing to say we will figure it out? I don't want to call people's names. All right. Well, no takers. Going once, going twice. I'd love to have some more get to know my team talks. We've only had no Mythic and Gears so far. I would put Nightcrawler up for that, but we talk so much about Nightcrawler the way it is. I'd love to have other teams have a get to know us type of presentation. Okay,
Could I volunteer Sam?
You can volunteer.
Get to know megahertz.
I kind of wondered if that was coming. Let me. I'll message our captains and see if they're down for it. I think
all right. So. The spot's open. Dr. B had a battery talk, but he's still under the weather, so hopefully we can get his battery talk in there soon too. Yeah, I just love to have some other people help. You guys did a great. I can't complain too much because, man, the group filled out the calendar for the first 2 months and it was completely full. So I don't have a lot of things that I should be complaining about here because the community has done a great job of filling the gaps. All right. Well, with that, please consider hosting a topic and please consider signing up out in the Sign Up Genius for hosting a topic. I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, we'll come up with something else and probably end up talking about money the whole time next week. Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't come back to the finances every week when we have an open table topic. It's important and it's something we all struggle with. But either way, I enjoy talking to you guys. We'll figure it out. If you're willing, once again, if you're willing to host a topic, please do. Otherwise, we'll figure it out next Friday when I send out the email, and I'll see everybody next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.